So, hello everyone, and thank you for joining us today for InnoTalks Expert Sustainable Mobility Edition. So, some of you have already met me at our previous events. My name is Anna. I work for EIT InnoEnergy Master School marketing team. And joining me today, we have very special guests. So we have Jennifer Dungs, who is a head of transport and mobility at EIT InnoEnergy. And joining her, we also have two of our students. So we have Masters in Energy Storage and Masters in Energy for Smart City students. So please also welcome Mateusz and Eloy to the webinar. Now, the idea of the event is to have Jennifer share her presentation first, where she will discuss the latest trends and reveal any career possibilities, opportunities in the sector. And then we'll jump to Eloy and Mateusz for their student perspective on the subject. Now, I hope you will enjoy the webinar today. Just before I pass on the presenter rights to Jennifer, I wanted to remind everyone that the round 3 application deadline is this week on the 7th of March. So I strongly encourage you to apply in this round because you don't know if the programs that you're interested in are still going to be available in round 4 and round 5. So to avoid any disappointment, it's good to apply early. And also a short reminder about the upcoming events that we also have. So on the 10th of March, we will have InnoTalks Q&A Masters in Energy Storage. So this is where you get to meet program directors and coordinators of the program and just interact with them and ask them any questions that you might have. We have also added InnoTalks experts. So again, we will have an in-house expert on the subject of energy storage on the 31st of March. And we also have Battle of Green Talent. So the final will take place on the 8th of April. So please have a look at the events and join if those sound interesting to you. Now, if you have any questions for Jennifer, Mateusz, and Eloy during the webinar, you can also ask them in the Q&A box. We will answer the questions as we're going through the webinar, and then any specific questions we will try and save for the Q&A session at the end of the webinar. Now, Jennifer, I will try to make you presenter so you can try and share the screen. Just a moment. Hello, Jennifer. Can you please try and share the screen? You're muted at the moment, I think.
And I believe, oh no, I see Jennifer offline, but also as presenter.
Hello, Jennifer, can you hear us? I think maybe there was a small, perhaps we might have some small technical. Oh, no, Jennifer, you're back. We can see you, but we cannot hear you. Hello, Jennifer.
I can now hear you.
Yes, perfect. We can hear you now. Perfect.
Oh, good.
Would you like?
Okay.
Perfect, Jennifer. Would you like to try and share your screen just to make sure it works?
Yes. What screen is anything showing or no?
Yes, we can see, or we can see your presentation in a slide mode. It just needs to be bigger.
Let me see. Can you see it now in the right mode?
It's in the presenter mode, so it's several slides. We can see the first and the following slide.
Okay, let me see. Do you know which thing I should click on, or?
You should click on display the settings.
Yes, exactly.
Is this better?
Perfect.
Yes, perfect.
Good. Okay. And you tell me when I should go, right? Because I couldn't hear anything until now.
Yes, of course. Sorry, Jennifer. We already started, so please go ahead. Yes.
Okay, perfect. Let me just move something to the side here so that I can see what I'm presenting. Okay, so hello to all of you. I'm Jennifer Dungs, and I just wanted to talk a little bit about the future of mobility and about sustainable mobility and the role that it will play. So what I find really exciting about this topic in general is that when we look to the future, it's really projected now that we'll see more disruption in the next 10 years in the area of mobility than we did in the last 100 years. And you guys studying are probably also involved in looking at this topic a little bit, but we're all of us are using mobility. And so the people who are in the field or in regulation or investors, we're all trying to kind of understand when will we see the volumes, the impact, and the timing of all these different innovations. I'm having, let me go to the next slide. Okay, but if you still look on the road today, you see primarily the private car. And because of that, there's still a lot of skeptics or non-believers regarding this disruption in general. People are still thinking, you know, mobility today is comfortable, it's convenient, I can travel when and where I want. So really, where is this need to change? But as you guys know as well, it comes at a cost, primarily to the people in our cities. Before COVID, it was still about 1 million people every week moving to the city. And on the topic of mobility, of course, it's pollution, but it's also a lot of other stuff, just the noise, the continuous demand of more space, and the wasted time and money. Before kind of jumping into mobility as a whole, because I really want to focus today a little bit on short distance mobility, I want to talk about our cities. 2% of the entire Earth's crust is what constitutes the cities today, just 2%. But 50% of the population is living in the cities. And we think that this will go up, or the World Health Organization predicts it'll go up to 70%, right, by 2050. 75% of the energy that's consumed across the globe is in our cities, and 80% of the greenhouse gases are coming from our cities. Which means if we can find new innovations and new technologies that are built and designed for our cities, we're going to have a very large lever to create impact. The good news is electric mobility is really starting to accelerate now. So, you know, when it first started coming on the scene, let's say back in 2013, it took about 5 years to sell the first 1 million electric vehicles. In 2019, it took only 6 months. The share of sales has been growing exponentially. So in 2018, it was only about 3% of all the vehicle sales, whereas in 2019, it was over 10%. And if you hear and read all the news, you know, you see all these different announcements from all the different automakers. I think just this week we saw Volvo, the weeks before it was Jaguar Land Rover, there was, you know, GM. So everyone is making these very strong claims on their plans for or commitment to electric mobility. The cool thing is, and this number is even out of date, but just some months ago, if all that was to happen, it would be 400 new electric vehicle models launched on the market, which would just be massive. Right now, we don't have that kind of selection, and 25 million in sales by 2025. But electric mobility in our cities is actually not enough. And that's where I think this topic gets quite interesting, because we are seeing now the emergence of all these other technology trends like autonomous driving or connected car. at the same time that we see these new societal trends, like the sharing economy or the heightened focus on sustainability. What's going to happen here is it's not going to be just one technology or one trend that creates the disruption, but rather this convergence of one, two, or three of these things all together. That will be what creates the real impact. And on top of this layer, what we're looking at here is what's happening just in the industry. So what's happening there is we have completely new startups or new entrants like Uber or Waymo, who are now an established piece in the value chain. Or we have the company that we invested in, Northvolt, who's now making green batteries in Europe. Then we have on the other side, players who are established but in a different industry, like Apple, who spent billions now on the connected car. We don't know what their plans are yet, but this is all creating a playing field that's getting disruptive. And one thing that I found quite interesting is when these dinosaur companies like Daimler and BMW start to partner up. I mean, I worked at those companies and they were always in competition, and now you see them forming partnerships. So it's really a fascinating time because of all of these factors kind of coming together. And one of the most powerful things that I think we'll start to see is this data element or digitalization. And as you guys are studying in the university, I think data analysts, this is going to become more and more important for mobility. And I'd like to show you an example why. So this is a thing that we did together with MIT, and we took all the data that you're looking at. It's 170 million taxi trips in New York City. And we collected the pickup spot and the drop-off spot. And then we looked at how many of those trips from all the people who were getting picked up and dropped off, I'll show it to you again, how many of those trips could be shared if every person who was getting in the taxi on one of those 170 million trips was only delayed 2 to 5 minutes on their whole trip. And in the end, when you stitch all this data together, you find out that 95% of those taxi trips could be shared with 2 people with less than 2 to 5 minute delay. That's 40% less trips then on all the trips that are taken. And that's why, again, it's really exciting to see with digitalization and having mobile phones and things like that, how we can use this data to create completely new mobility solutions. But like I said, it's not going to be just one solution that will help fix the challenges that we have. Now, I don't know where everybody's sitting there. I actually can't even see anybody. I wish I could. But I think we can all kind of relate to this picture. And if you look at the circle in orange, the point is today that with last mile logistics and also cars just in the city, they're taking up the parking, they're blocking the curbs. If you look at the blue circles, you can just see this amount of space that a car takes up versus a bike or a person walking is actually quite dangerous, and it's just not leaving a lot of space for people. And when we think of the alternative, like, and that's what I want to also talk about today, of using a shared micromobility vehicle, for example, the yellow circles show up, which is, you know, maybe it's not where you need it when you need it, so there's nothing there, or maybe it's broken. The lady there who's standing by the kickboard scooter, there's actually more than 50% of the use cases aren't covered by a vehicle like that. If you have groceries, if you have kids or something else, or it might just be the hassle of having to download another app to be able to use those solutions. So the question that we need to try to solve is, how can we increase like the utilization of non-vehicles in our cities to just clean up the space and everything else? To see what would happen if we did that, I think I just want to show a couple points, because today in our cities, more than 60% of all the kilometers traveled in our city are less than 8 kilometers. So in theory, 60% of those trips could be done with something that's not a car. And if you look at the comparison of an ICE versus a battery electric, you can see the CO2 life cycle emission savings. But then if you go to something that's like a kickboard scooter, you can see that how that increases even more. And same story with the space. You know, CO2 and energy demand is one part, but also just the space that will be created when we switch to something that's not a car. So it sounds good, you know, and it seems like this is something we should look at, but it always comes to question, you know, well, what do we need to do? Like, how do we create the utilization? Where do we need to start? What technology innovations are needed? Where do we need to focus? How can we solve this puzzle? And before kind of coming to that, I started an exercise to think about, you know, if we were able to do this and replace cars with smaller vehicles like bikes or e-mopeds or kickboard scooters, I first wanted to know what would be the impact. Is it a significant impact that we should even try to figure out what technologies are then needed? So I'm going to start with the impact, and I did this work together with McKinsey. It has a lot of different assumptions, so it's only looking at cities over 300,000. It's based on the fact that today, less than 0.1% of all those trips under 8 kilometers are done with a shared micromobility. So it's almost negligible. Even though outside your apartments and in places where you live, you see all those vehicles, it's actually a insignificant amount of trips that are actually done. And the assumptions look at, okay, if we can increase, you know, make better vehicles and increase the use cases, maybe we are able to do 13% of all the potential shared micromobility trips with this kind of vehicle. And this is the results. So the results would be 30 million tons of CO2 saved every year. Just to give you some context, in Germany, it's the largest energy demand country and also the largest CO2 contributor in the EU. And this would be the equivalent of more than 12% of Germany's CO2 emissions that we would save. So it's really significant. Jobs, it could create 1 million, both direct or indirect jobs. And right now in the whole auto industry, we have about 13.8. So just that you have some context. It could free up about 4 times the equivalent space of Paris if we could get some of these cars off the road, what I said earlier with 13% of all the trips. And lastly, it would impact our GDP because basically it's calculated on the amount of time people are spending in congestion. And when you have less time in congestion, there's actually a value of time that you can calculate. So yeah, this is kind of coming to a close here. Just with InnoEnergy, we invest in these technologies. Right now we have 27 assets that go across a wider portfolio, but with that said, there's still, you know, about 15 that are focused on this short distance mobility. And the places where we're looking at now is really on purpose-built, modular, sustainable vehicles. So using recyclable material, things that are produced in Europe and not being imported. This will help with the serviceability, the repair, the entire business model. Then of course, the clean energy, which if you guys have seen in the news, you can see the swappable, exchangeable batteries, and we need the whole infrastructure for that. And also the recycling of those batteries. And then the last piece on the technology side is really related to the digitalization component. So fleet software and everything to do with the operations and redistribution so that we just run everything more efficiently. And then on top of that, we need to add some more things to make it addressable or more attractive for the consumer, like seamless journeys, right? So it's connected already to the public infrastructure or other parts of our mobility ecosystem, and then broader efforts as well that might be also at the regulatory level. And if we could do all this, and we're counting on the next generation, which is all of you guys, then hopefully our cities would look more like this, where we have much more space for traveling in alternative types of vehicles, so cargo or you know, smaller kind of passenger vehicles or bikes. We have a lot more room for people in general, in greenery and things like that. And I don't know if you guys know the very famous photos from 1900 and 1913 in New York, where 1900 it was all horses and they had one internal combustion engine. And then 10 years later, in 1913, it was all internal combustion engines and just one horse. And you can always see these pictures in people's presentations where they say to try to find the horse in 1913. And my hope is that in 10 years from now, we can look at our cities and play the game of trying to find the one internal combustion engine. So with that, I will hand back over to the moderators, and I'm happy to yeah, answer any questions, or I think now I need to hand this back somehow, right?
Yes, thank you so much, Jennifer. A super insightful presentation. We will pass it on to Eloy now. So you just need to click on Eloy, right click on his name, and yeah, and make him a presenter. And then, as Jennifer has mentioned, if I see already there's few questions coming in, so we will save them for the Q&A. So if you have any questions for Jennifer, Eloy, or Mateusz, just keep writing them in the Q&A box, and we'll cover them in the Q&A session at the end of the presentations. Eloy, can you share the presentation? Is it working now?
I don't know if I'm presenter already or not.
Yes, you should be a presenter. I can see that you have the presenter rights, so you should be able to share the presentation if you go under the sharing tab.
I'm in sharing, but I cannot share yet.
Just a moment. I'm just going to check on my side as well.
I have it kind of blocked. I only can change the presenter.
Should we try? Can you make? Because I see there's two Eloys that joined the presentation. There is another Eloy under the staff. Can you make another Eloy a presenter?
Let me check if I can. Because I've been having problems with the preferences with the GoToMeeting, so I don't know if. Okay, just give me a second.
Alternatively, Eloy, there's no stress. What you can do is you can send me the presentation, and if Mateusz, if you're ready, maybe we'll jump to your presentation now, and then in the meantime, Eloy can share with me the presentation. Oh no, we can see it now. Yeah. Eloy, it's working. Sorry. Perfect.
Can you see it now? Yeah, so sorry. I've been trying so hard, and also with my camera.
There is no stress at all. We can see the presentation. It's perfectly clear. So
yeah.
The floor
okay.
is yours.
Can you see, like full screen mode? Now maybe?
Yes, it's full screen mode now.
All right. Sorry for these minutes. Thank you, Jennifer, for the presentation and the overview of mobility. Thank you all to be there, and thanks InnoEnergy to invite me to collaborate in this session. Yeah, I'm gonna talk about my personal overview about the field, about why I joined InnoEnergy. So first of all, I'm gonna do a small introduction about myself. Later on, about what made me join InnoEnergy and why I'm interested in mobility in general, and then which is the link between mobility and InnoEnergy, and what are my career aspirations. So my name is Eloy. I studied electrical engineering in Barcelona a few years ago already, and now I'm studying an online master in business management, and also I'm currently a student of the Master's Energy for Smart Cities program. I have experience as an energy consultant, mainly in cogeneration industry. And also before joining InnoEnergy, I was working in a project regarding the installation of EV chargers throughout the Spanish territory. So at that point, I was becoming more and more interested about this energy transition in general in mobility, as I was working with EV chargers. So I said, okay, I need to keep improving. I need to prepare myself. I really need to go for a master's of something that really motivates me, and that was the smart cities. So I was looking for different options, and I came along with InnoEnergy. That I was told that they offer a really good combination between technical background, but also business and management and innovation, specifically in the master's energy for smart cities. So I said, yeah, I want to be in this energy transition. Also regarding sustainability, so a smart city, mobility, smart cities was one of the direct links to how the city is going to change, how mobility is going to become a key player in the future. We can see I put you here 4 of the Sustainable Development Goals that are directly related with mobility. So what motivates me about mobility? What are the challenges? Jennifer said say them already, more or less. So first of all, our main goal has to be have a mobility free of CO2 emissions. Clean mobility, not only in land, but also maritime and air transportation. And of course, to achieve that, we need innovation, we need technical development. And Jenny said, okay, yeah, not a unique solution. We are facing different challenges here. So we're going to consider electrical mobility involving different solutions with flexibility of the demand, V2G solution, but also green hydrogen is gonna be important. Hyperloop solution. So we have so many challenges, so many options that they are gonna be there in the future. But of course, we have to do all of this regarding safety. Urban areas are becoming more and more populated. So we need to find a good way to integrate all these mobility solutions. How to coordinate the different mobility providers. This means improve the public transport services. I think it's half of the urban population right now of the world. Urban population has not convenient access to public transport. Okay, so there's a lot to do. How to as well integrate the micro mobility services with public transport and other options like car or motor sharing. Then how this is gonna change our lives. Of course, we need to find solutions that are accessible and affordable to everyone. How the figure of private car is gonna evolve in big cities regarding space, regarding new technologies. How are we gonna do this transition, always maintaining the human comfort and safety? We saw that with COVID, how cities are changing due to a strange situation, how lifestyle change and how mobility change in trips into the cities, in amount of cars into the cities, in also clean air and all related with environmental factors. Okay, so to achieve all these goals, of course, we need this economic growth, we need this investment, and we need the regulations to offer and to create a good environment for this transition. Because when I was working in the EV charger field, the technology was there. It really worked well, but most of the time we were facing problems about paperwork, about permissions, about how to deal, and people weren't prepared, or the different stakeholders weren't prepared to face the challenges. So we have to make a step forward there and create this environment that they're going to allow us to make this transition. So that's why I say this. Are you ready to join the future of mobility? I think InnoEnergy is a good place to study, to start getting involved in this energy transition. As I said before, in the case of energy for smart cities, the good point in the program is that there is a really good technical background about new technologies, about what's happening in there in the energy transition, but also this other part regarding innovation, regarding entrepreneurship, and all the business factors. No, So right now I'm in Leuven, KU Leuven. It's a university in Belgium. And important also KTH for the rest of the students of this first year of the Masters in Smart Cities. The universities of high level of research, you can see that on the classes, you can see that on the environment. All the PhD students that are collaborating, sorry, with the programs. And of course, there's apart from the classes, there's a lot of courses involving innovation. So you get to know different innovation environments. In our case, with cities like Barcelona, Antwerp, and Amsterdam. And with here, I put some examples of courses that could be linked with mobility in general, like power electronics, electrical drives, power systems, smart distribution systems, also energy challenges. And at your second year, you will be able to choose between different options for your master thesis. I could see them, a few of them already. I didn't have to choose yet, but a few of them are directly related with electric mobility. It's a trend topic right now, but also different topics regarding energy challenges. And as well, different options for internships regarding mobility. As you may know, InnoEnergy has a really good contact with startup environment. So there's a lot of projects behind that. So what do I expect about my career aspirations? So as I said a few minutes ago, I want to join this startup environment because my idea is one day to develop my own project, gaining some expertise in this energy transition. I finished my degree, my bachelor's a few years ago, so I needed this update and this improvement of the technical background, but also this business approach. You will be able to join different challenge regarding mobility, technologies, and service. And what I also consider important is how to create this professional network, getting to know people from everywhere, from different fields, involved in different projects that can help you a lot to understand how the job world works. And of course, it's a goal that you always have to have. It's like keep learning and improving yourself. So yeah, facing challenges after challenges is gonna help you to see where you want to go and what do you want to achieve. So that was my part. Hope it was useful for you. Feel free to contact me to ask any questions. And yeah, thank you for your time and see you soon.
Super, thank you, Eloy. Thank you for the presentation. We will now go to our next presenter, Mateusz. So I think, Eloy, you would need to pass on a presenter right to Mateusz by clicking on his name and making him a presenter.
All right. I think it's ready, Mateusz. So yeah.
Okay, can you see the presentation?
Yes.
All right. So I come from the first batch of students from energy storage program. There are 4 of us, and the agenda will be briefly going through my background, then how I am interested in sustainable mobility, and after this we'll talk about the university and student activities, and what's the future for me and for my friends from the energy storage program. So who am I? My name is Mateusz and I come from Poland. I took my bachelor's degree at Warsaw University of Technology, and my thesis research was connected with the phase change materials. I tried to come up with some new composite materials to enhance their properties. Then I went to work in a Polish company developing megawatt scale PV farms. And I stopped working there because I got accepted for InnoEnergy Energy Storage Master's program. So my drive to go to this program was basically to get some international experience and have this like student experience abroad, because I did not experience Erasmus or any similar programs before. So for year one, I went to Lisbon, to Instituto Superior Tecnico, and year two is Aalto University in Finland, where I am right now. So why sustainable mobility? There is already big and dynamic field. This sustainable mobility is this field, and because of this, a lot of opportunities for jobs arise. And this is a very strong point of interest among students. And it's also a very good use case for student projects. So as Eloy said about EV chargers and all of the EV infrastructure and other technologies for powering vehicles like hydrogen or those hyperloops, this all is a very, very interesting field to discover. And it's a very good opportunity for students to put their ideas into practice. And of course, e-mobility is one of the best targets for energy storage solutions. That's why I think that energy storage program is a good fit for sustainable mobility. And what did I do regarding sustainable mobility? The courses at the universities that I took helped us to understand the need for sustainability and how to make technologies and processes more sustainable. Our professors insisted that we need eco-design for the best operation of those technologies. So we need to think about the potential challenges of recycling or the sustainability issues at the very beginning of the designing phase. And in our course of study, also business aspects were included, and I will talk about it more in the following slides. By the way, all of the pictures that you can see in my presentation come from my own folders, because I like taking pictures, and you can get the feeling how it feels like being a student, InnoEnergy student. And this picture that you see comes from Web Summit that took place in Lisbon. And this is the startup event mainly, but there's also many things going on out there. So the InnoEnergy program helped us get into those events, and it enabled us to talk to startup owners, business and industry experts, and investors. So this networking is a really strong point of InnoEnergy programs. So more specifically, what did I do regarding the sustainable mobility? We tried to pay attention to the batteries themselves and the issues with recycling of those batteries. So as we know, there are more and more electric vehicles on the roads around the globe. But unfortunately, less than 10% of lithium-ion batteries are being recycled right now. And this is a very big problem. And we can hear about many issues. Sometimes we hear about some major fires when the batteries that are supposed to be recycled are kept in the wrong way, and there are explosions and fires. And we want to make the most of the potential of those batteries to use them in the second life applications. So this was taken as our entrepreneurial journey idea, and we made technical and economic evaluation of second life battery solutions. And we had this startup creation process for such a business. So we tried to deliver this whole idea and make it so that it looks like a startup idea. And I also had hands-on experience in designing and constructing a power bank from recovered batteries, as you see in the picture, and it was done as an internship last summer. My thesis ideas in the subject is possible scenarios for electrification of ferries and mobile electric vehicle charging station design. These are the topics that I've been proposed. I haven't taken my decision yet, but March is the month when I will be starting working on my master's thesis. What about the future? So first and foremost, I like to proceed with the thesis and have a good collaboration with the company. that I will be working with. And then I would like to concentrate on working on the startup idea that I have told you about. So it's mainly about funding strategies, because we need some funding for the equipment and the batteries and the design process. And after we design all this this pilot installation, we would like to put those installations in certain places and test in real conditions. Apart from the work, I would like to travel around and make the most of my time being abroad in such wonderful places. And after this, or maybe along this, I would like to find a job. For us, it is really desirable to benefit from graduate programs or summer internships, because as I've been told, and as I can see, InnoEnergy students have quite a big chance of getting the places in the renowned and prestigious companies. And one take-home message that I would like to deliver to you is that university duties are only one part of the program, and the other parts of the program is culture experience, some new friendships, and much fun during the courses and during all the other student activities with the people from all over the world. This is all. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Mateusz. So we already started to receive the questions, so I suggest we jump straight into Q&A because we always end up running out of time otherwise. So I will start with the first question that we have received, and it's regarding electric vehicle batteries. Now, I just want to, on a side note, I'm not an energy engineering expert, so I will read out the question and please jump in whoever would like to answer. So what is the optimal process to dispose of electric vehicle batteries?
Shall I answer it, or does somebody else want to jump in?
That would be great, Jennifer.
Yeah, it's actually a very good question, and I think not one that is able to be answered with a final answer at this time. And the reason why I say that is because for quite a long time, the focus has been on second use, right? And we were really looking at this whole value chain of taking the batteries, let's say, from the car, and then maybe using them as home storage, or maybe using them for another type of vehicle at your home, like an electric lawnmower or something like this. With that being said, Northvolt, who we are working with quite closely, they have actually started to move forward with kind of a different concept, which is that the batteries are almost just out on lease, and then they come back to the manufacturer, and then they are disassembled, and you take out the raw materials. And that's because today there are so many raw materials that are in the battery, and so the value of just having that raw material back in their value chain is a better business than using it for second use. However, it's not totally figured out. So they have a lot of technical challenges actually in doing all this. It's actually a lot of robotics that are doing it, because you have to handle such small and precious amounts of metals. So right now, I think it's being explored on both fronts.
And Jennifer, just a follow-up question, because I see there's more questions coming in, so I'll just follow up on this subject. What is the general lifespan of a battery, and is there any chemical emissions during the production of reusable batteries?
So the length of the battery, again, is, I don't know if you guys have seen from Elon Musk, but he recently said that his batteries will be able to go for 1 million miles. What we know today is something around 500,000 miles is something that is maybe more realistic today. But the battery technology, and maybe you guys have seen these graphs, right? You've seen the cost of the battery come down, you've seen the technology. It's actually like a hockey stick on how quickly the battery technology is improving. So it's hard to say, but the battery today that's in your car will outlast, I would say, your car.
Great, thank you, Jennifer. Thank you for explaining. We also have a question regarding career possibilities in electric mobility. So actually, it would be nice to hear from everyone, especially also from Mateusz and Eloy, about your aspirations as well. I know you already mentioned some, but just again to highlight.
Okay, so maybe I can start. I will add to this battery life the thing that we need to take care of the battery to ensure its long life. So we can do it by either not using very high currents for loading the batteries. The professors at our university told us that if we use fast charging for very frequently, this might influence the battery's life in the negative way. So we need to pay attention to it. And we've been told that the battery can last from 7 to 10 years, but it all depends on how the battery is treated. Okay, so coming back to the question about careers. Yes, I think it's very good that we have Eloy, because he comes from this more, I think, electronics side. So there's a lot going on here with EV charging and taking care of the grid so that it can withstand this additional burden of electric vehicles and EV chargers and the infrastructure. So this is one side in the modernization of grids and making the grids more flexible. But from the second side, it can also be connected with the battery recycling or refurbishing. So like multiple fields are involved in here.
Yes, I would like to add something. So as Mateusz said, it's different challenges involved when we are talking about mobility. And a clear example, it's about the chargers itself, the EV chargers. Okay, yeah, electric vehicles are coming in. Now that even the amount of EVs is still low but growing exponentially, the amount of companies working in, of course, the car manufacturers, but working in projects regarding chargers, V2G technologies, about battery systems. So there's a lot involved in that. So there's a lot of investment behind, a lot of companies behind. This, of course, means a lot of job opportunities into the field. And we don't have to forget that, yeah, now it's cars, it's land mobility. Now there's a lot keep going in heavy vehicles like trucks and transportation of goods. But of course, we don't have to forget the next step will be like air mobility, like all the ships that are going, that also are like a source of pollutants and contamination. So we also have like a long run to do, and it's gonna be really challenging, and also the industry is gonna change quite fast. So we have to be flexible and we have to be ready for those.
And maybe just one more thing on the jobs too. What's happened in just the last 2 years with Northvolt establishing battery production in Europe, which was not here before, and now we see the different green battery production facilities that are popping up. All of those, and Tesla's putting in their plant, as you guys know, near Berlin. But also what that's done is it's created opportunity even upstream. So in mining, for example, or raw material extraction. And I know of right now about 7 different large initiatives that are about 1 billion each for mining or collecting raw materials that will be then used later for companies like Northvolt in Europe. So it's all the way what you guys said. You know, you talked about the V2G, so connecting then with the grid or second life or recycling, and then all the way on the other side to actually mining and cell production and then packaging and all of that. So a lot of opportunities.
Thank you, everyone. And just on that subject of the careers, also there's a very specific question about the role of the policymaker in this transportation transition. So what is the exact role of that policymaker?
So maybe the first thing to do is to make things easier, because from my experience, from the startup experience, there are a lot of problems with like making the second life solution like work because of some obstacles from the like different governments, because each of the governments has their own policy. So from my perspective, it would be good to unify this a bit so that businesses around Europe can operate pretty smoothly between the countries. So this is the one thing that should be introduced.
Yeah, and also something to take into consideration, it's that all the policy behind electromobility, I mean, we have to do it step by step, because there's a lot of influence in society, in how cities are changing. So yes, for example, the case that I know closely because I'm from Barcelona, we started to limit the entrance of vehicles with internal combustion engines, like old vehicles, but they have a really high impact in contamination. So as you can see, people will have to adapt themselves to those changes, and of course, those changes have to be progressively. We cannot do them. Okay, we need to achieve like zero emissions, so let's gonna block all the cars from the cities. No, I mean, there's like life behind, like society behind, and we have to take into consideration that. And yeah, we have to run, but we have to run in a conscious way. So step by step, as Mateusz said, unification is important, to just all of us play in the same field and work together. And I think that's the key.
And Jennifer, also in case you would like to add, I also have a secondary part to this question as well. In terms of developing countries, how do we see electric vehicles applied in developing countries where the traffic is not properly regulated and perhaps hectic and the road conditions are not great?
Yeah, this is actually one topic that I really love, because I think we can actually, in where we're at, like in Europe, we can actually learn a lot from what's happening in the developing countries, because they're actually kind of leapfrogging, right? So if you look at where they were, they don't have passenger cars for every one person or so what we have in Europe and the United States for every 1.4 persons. They are still using a lot of bikes, and let's say in India, like rickshaws and like purpose-built vehicles, actually, which is now what Europe is trying to do, for example, in our cities for logistics. Like, let's get rid of vans and let's use three-wheeled vehicles. And what you see, I think, happening over there is that they will switch from like not really having so much car density to, when they do have car density, going straight to electric. And they're just figuring it out based on how they use and move already today. So I think we actually have some investments over there that are really quite interesting to see how they develop from mobility versus like what we do here, which is yeah, much more convenient for the end customer, but yeah, not a great solution for our cities. But going back to the first point and what was just mentioned, I think what was mentioned was the collaboration with cities, the citizens, the startups, the corporates, and that's actually what we have to do. So like, it doesn't make sense what LOI said, which is just banning cars completely from the city without helping to take everybody along on the journey. And I think there's still a lot of questions. So if you look at the topic of autonomous driving, people really don't know what impact this will have in our cities. Like, if you really go to level 4, you know, will we have more cars in our city because the cars are driving in and out and they're not parking, and we have people who were no longer driving in cars? Will we take some of the people that were previously on the bus and now put them in a car. So it's just like a lot of questions of, are the technologies being guided in a way that will get us to the right spot in the end? And I think that's the important part, is all this stuff has to be like co-created with the cities, with the citizens, to make sure that you get the right impact that you want to get at the end.
Thank you, Mateusz, and Jennifer. Thank you for the insights. We're now jumping to the topic of hydrogen, which I'm sure everyone was expecting might come up. So the question is about the outlook for hydrogen fuel transport, and what are the biggest challenges you see in a green hydrogen economy relating to this green fueled transport. So I don't know who would like to take the question first.
I can just give my overview about hydrogen. I'm not an expert in hydrogen, but I think right now the main challenge is how to obtain clean hydrogen. This means a lot of consumption, energy consumption from the grid, and as well with water. So if we are able to obtain like renewable energy generation to just process and create this hydrogen, then it's all right, because we have like clean energy behind. But actually, I think right now this is the main challenge. I don't know, Jennifer and Mateusz, if you want to add something regarding hydrogen and how it's gonna play a role.
I mean, I think what you can see is that the bet has been made a little bit on electric mobility so far from the automakers, right? And so you're seeing a real strong strategy from all of them. I know behind closed doors, some of their hydrogen activities are still going on, but in the past, the thinking was always, we're gonna need hydrogen for the longer distances. And now I think this is really being challenged, whether or not we will need it for the longer distances, because with the infrastructure and even the current battery technology, it's not really creating a problem. So whether or not how we'll see it in transportation, I think the only thing I can say is that the hydrogen topic in general won't be pushed because of transport and mobility. It'll be pushed because of other industry sectors that need green hydrogen. And I think, I don't know if you guys saw the press announcement about green steel, but when you use green hydrogen in the processing of steel, like I think that's where we're going to first start seeing the impact of green hydrogen in our industry. And then connected to hydrogen, we might see it for what Eloy said, like heavy duty applications, maybe in the shipping industry. It could also make sense in some of these things, but I think for passenger cars, it will be a little bit tricky to catch up, primarily because of the infrastructure also that needs to be established then in parallel to the electric infrastructure.
Yes, I wanted also to say about this green steel and the use of hydrogen in the industry, because this is what I could see and in the trends and what we've heard during our lectures or other webinars, that this is a very important field to introduce hydrogen into industry at first, and to make it greener through the green hydrogen production processes. And there's a lot of research going on. I think especially in Germany, about electrolyzers and increasing the share of green hydrogen. And in year 2021, there should be a lot of like outcome of this research. So we should await very many scientific papers and publications about it.
Thank you, Mateusz. Thank you also for contributing. I know we already, Jennifer already touched on the subject in developing countries. So there's a bit of a two-part question that came in. So first part's already been answered, but maybe if you have any examples on what is actually happening in terms of the transition, and what can industries and technologies do to play a role in transitioning towards electrical vehicles.
I'm not sure we have so much time to get into that, although it's a really good question. And
Just
if anybody wants to connect afterwards, we can do that. But I think, you know, one thing that's interesting, I think, in the developing countries that we don't have over here, though, is so much regulations. So some of the stuff from electric mobility started with how people were being independent and making sure that they have access to electricity in their homes. So having, you know, their own solar panels for their own homes, and then sharing that with their neighbors, and that actually led to then these very cheap electric motors, like $30 a motor, to just retrofit it on your rickshaw. Right, and then they were doing that, and then they're connecting those vehicles to the home vehicles to do charging. So it's just a lot more organic, but they're not like being as regulated as much as what we are in Europe. So I guess there's pluses and minuses, but it allows for them to maybe be a little bit more creative in their approach. But yeah, I know we're out of time, so maybe we can talk about it on the side. But if we can do,
yeah. Sorry, I just wanted to check, Mateusz and Eloy, would you want to add anything to this as well?
This is really funny because I heard about those rickshaws and e-rickshaws in India, because we are taking an additional project management course, and our lecturer is from India, and he said that this e-rickshaws are really big thing to develop in many regions in India. So yes, this is already happening.
Yeah, the importance of the economic growth as well of countries like China or India with like high levels of population. They will become a key, because, for example, we saw that in PV panels already, how China growth recently regarding PV panel technologies and also capacity installed. So probably the next step is going to be with battery solution. Well, China, of course, is like leading, but of other technologies. And India is taking the steps of China. So we need new key players, new countries doing a step forward in this economic growth, in this technology development as well.
Perfect. Thank you so much, everyone, for the contribution. I know we're out of time, but I was wondering, because there's so many questions coming in from the students, perhaps Jennifer, if afterwards, I know you've done many publications on the subject, so perhaps afterwards you would be able to share those with me, and I'm happy to distribute it with all the attendees for further information on the subject for anyone who's interested. And Eloy and Mateusz, if students are asking if they can contact you in terms of discuss some of the subject further. So if you're happy, I'm also happy to share your contact details with the students who attended the webinar.
No problem with that.
Yeah, of course.
Super. So I know we're out of time, so I think we will have to close the webinar now. I would like to thank all our presenters for taking time to attend today. I know you're very busy, so thank you so much for presenting and sharing your insight. It's very, very interesting, and I hope the webinar was interesting for our attendees as well. Now, I will forward you all the information after the webinar, and please plug in for our next events, which is going to be, I believe, on the 10th of March. For energy storage. So thank you everyone for joining us today. Have a really good rest of the day. Thanks.
Thank you.
Bye. Thank you.
Everyone. Thanks. Bye.
Goodbye.